I am Rob Hirschfeld, CEO and co-founder of RackN, and I like my coffee black and weak, much to my wife's chagrin. She thinks I am weak-natured because of it. I like weak black coffee.
Into that. And I also would love to look at it through the lens of the machine learning engineer and who's building with machine learning use cases and potentially building on top of the data foundations that the company has, and how you see that when it comes to these automations, and especially like automating code, automating infrastructure, and doing it inefficiently as opposed to things that you've seen work.
Oh my goodness. Especially for ML workloads, I think that because they tend to be big, they tend to be ones that have a fair bit of complexity in the infrastructure, and there's a high desire to have very rigorous repeatability across that fleet. But what that does is it actually undermines some of the counterintuitive pieces, and I'll explain that for this. So one of the big barriers I hit when we started talking about immutability, and one of my chief solutions architect and I used to have this argument all the time. He's like, I want to re-image a whole server. I want to burn a server down and I want to build it back up from immutable artifacts. And I'm like, there's no way. That's slow. It's hard. I don't want to risk breaking a whole server because we're going to re-image it. And I'm like, well, why don't we just take the server and patch it? Just apply the little patches. It's so fast. We can just surgically tweak it. And he was entirely right. What we've seen as we implemented those practices is that when you take this sort of an artifact approach, this immutability of saying, this is what I want my server to look like, and then you reset it from zero back into that pristine state, that immutable state, what it does is it gives you a huge amount of certainty in what you've deployed and how. And the thing I was reacting to, and this I think is one of the bad habits that we get into, is you have battle scars that say, yeah, that system didn't reset correctly, or I have a high failure rate on the resets. And I see this a lot. A lack of reliability is the crisis in automation that people have to think about that. If you're nervous about running an automation script or pushing a button to reset a server and burn it down to zero and reset it, then address your reliability problem first, right? That process needs to be reliable. And what we've seen is, one, the artifact patching is actually, a full system reset is actually a faster reset than patching in a lot of cases, because that surgical patch that you think is very surgical ends up actually taking a lot of time and bringing a machine in from an already patched, everything's right artifact with the applications installed. If you start with that, actually laying that image in and booting it is very fast. If you go through like an apt-get update and apt-get this, apt-get, and you're pulling things in from all sorts of repos, that is the most fragile process in the industry. Anytime I do it like apt-get update or yum install, whatever, it goes to the internet, it goes to repos, it's going to tell you you're out of date, it's going to pull in all sorts of random stuff that you weren't thinking you had to do. And those systems are incredible. That process is incredibly fragile. It's very slow in comparison. And so if you build that image, you do all that work once and then clone it to your entire fleet and then solve the reliability issue so that you can confidently roll machines over like that, the difference in performance of your system is remarkable. And then, right, we have customers who rebuild an ESXi cluster. They just push a button, they reset the whole cluster, BIOS everything, and they push a button, they go get coffee, they come back and they resume their work, right? But it's mind-changing because now they're like, well, it's out of date. Let me just reset and I know what the correct state looks like. Let me go do that. They stopped wondering, like, is my system all the way patched or partially patched? Did patching this break? Am I in this? There's all sorts of mess that people create with incomplete updates or partial updates or not knowing the state of their system. And then there's no standalone system. So everything's interconnected to other things. And if you're not sure of the version it's at or the patch state it's at, or if somebody hacked it, right? It's beautiful. but it's a completely different way of thinking about it. The other thing I would say in this is turn rates are really valuable. I keep talking about exercise, right? A part of another thing of exercise is just being very comfortable with turning things over and having right, the days when you would have a system and be like, it's been up for a year. You pop champagne corks and be excited. Nowadays, if you have systems that haven't been reset in 30 days, right, you should actually be like, oh, wait, all my servers are too old. This is cloud or on-prem. I don't care where they are. If you're not able to roll all of your infrastructure on a 30-day basis or faster, then you're not keeping up with patches. You're not refreshing. You don't have the resilience in your operations to actually deal with an emergency patch or change or something like that, right? If you're every 30 days, you're cycling through stuff and somebody comes out with the next Heartbleed virus and you're like, oh, okay, that's going to impact all my systems. And now you've lost, like when Java, we had the Java things and people lost months of work finding, discovering, fixing, patching. You want to be able to say, oh, I know how to fix this. I got the fix queued up, start a rollout process. And you want to be able to say, instead of taking 30 days, I'm going to do my rollout over the next week. If you don't have those processes in place, you're vulnerable.
And as you were mentioning earlier about the legacy code and that being resilient and tested and basically battle hardened, how do you look at these two things and how do they fit together?
You mean patching versus the immutable, the thinking about immutability?
Yeah, I'm thinking more along the lines of having this legacy code and then also being agile enough to burn everything down every 30 days.
I don't see them as incompatible. If you have legacy code, the thing that makes it scary to people is they don't know how to recreate the build. They don't know how to patch it. They don't know how to upgrade it. They don't know what the environment is. And so the challenge with the legacy piece is not the language that it was written in or the age of the code. The thing that gets people in trouble when it gets to legacy is they don't know how to maintain it. They don't know how to patch it. They don't know how to upgrade it. They basically created a static artifact. And so it is worth noting, right? When I talk about having these immutable artifacts and version controlled everything, it's only useful if you have an automated process to build that artifact, right? And people forget, immutability doesn't just mean that I have a whole bunch of stuff sitting in a locked vault. What it actually means is that I have a way to reproduce those artifacts in a predictable way and then apply those into my environment in a predictable way.